Welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people just like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Before I introduce today's guest, who is been a monthly feature here, which I hope you enjoy. He is doing great things in the world through his nonprofit organization, Living with Harmony. Just want to mention that my new book, Own Your Health with Glenn Mercer, is available on Amazon now. If you buy it by Sunday at midnight, October 18th, and email us your receipt to chefajbonus@yahoo.com. We'll send you a bunch of bonuses, recipes that aren't in the book, a recipe video for my double frosted vanilla carrot cake, and the audio files to the book so you don't have to get it on Audible. So welcome back, John Pierre.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, thank you for, we took a poll. Well, I don't know if it was a poll. We just asked the people if they liked you to come do this with me every month, and they said yes. So I try to do a Q&A every month, even though I'm available every day. Hello there, Ali, to answer questions, at least through the chat. And I thought it would be good that we could also verbally answer some of the questions that are submitted by the group and the wonderful viewers online. So we'll get started right away with a question from Kaylin. And this is a fitness one, so I'm going to direct it to you. Any tips for chronically tight muscles? My husband always says he has had tight hamstrings from the womb and he'll never be able to fix them. What would you recommend? He is quite active, but finds if he plays a sport he hasn't played in a while, he's extremely sore with sharp muscle pain the next day. He eats plant-based with me, but does include some salt and minimal added sugar. He's a type 1 diabetic and sometimes needs straight sugar when in a pinch. Is it normal to be sore after a more intense workout than usual? He always thinks he should feel invincible all the time eating plants.
Okay, well, that's a great question. A little complicated because there's a lot of variables there. But one of the first and most important things is, number one, always talk to your sports, physician. So some sort of orthopedic person or your chiropractor to make sure there's no misalignment anywhere having to do with his pelvis that could be affecting his hamstrings. Tight hamstrings are pretty much chronic, and one of the main reasons is because we sit all the time. And that causes problems with your hip flexors. And when your hip flexors get thrown off, that throws everything else off. We sit a lot, so we don't have good circulation. We have very poor hydration too. So one of the first things from a dietary standpoint, make sure you're very well hydrated. You should be urinating fairly frequently throughout the day. You shouldn't only be going once or twice. You should be urinating frequently. Your urine should be fairly clear. In other words, it shouldn't be very dark unless you're using riboflavin or vitamin B2 or certain medications can affect it. And some foods to a certain extent can change things like beets and things like that. But be sure you're really well hydrated. Make sure your diet is fairly high in natural foods that are high in magnesium. So mainly green leafy vegetables, because green leafy vegetables where the magnesium content helps to relax muscles. That's why many people have insomnia or issues sleeping. They'll take a powder that's basically just a magnesium powder. They go by different names to help the muscle relax. And then make sure that you're engaged in some sort of somatic like yoga or Tai Chi. Yoga works very well. We have a qualified instructor that can help you loosen up some of those muscle issues. And then getting involved in foam rolling. So using it looks almost like a big pool noodle that you're going to be rolling your hamstrings on. You're going to be sitting on the floor on this kind of firm pool noodle and you're rolling. You can also use a hand roller that looks kind of like a rolling pin that you would find in your kitchen. You can manually roll that hamstring out. But the other thing is make sure throughout the day that your husband is moving frequently so his muscles don't stiffen up. They're generally the stiffest in the morning. And then as we become warmer and we move throughout the day, they loosen up. The problem is many people go right from laying into a bed for 8 hours and then they go right into sitting in a chair till the evening, and then they're done with work and then they drive, so they're sitting again, and then they go home and they crash on the couch. So all day you're either lying down or sitting. So that impedes your circulation and it doesn't allow you to stretch your muscles. So hopefully that helps.
Great. I love the idea of going to a sports medicine doctor. I think they're fantastic. They have a lot of tools in their tool belt that they can help people in physical. Sending people to physical therapy is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. The hamstrings, those are the muscles behind the thighs, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they attach in up kind of by your butt and go right back down by your knee, behind your knee. They're just chronically tight in almost everybody. Almost everybody has tight hamstrings. So it's definitely, you have to be diligent to keep flexible on that.
When people take their foot and behind it and then pull up, I see like that runner stretch. Is that for the hamstring?
That's your quadricep, your muscle in the front, the rectus femoris.
So what is I'm trying to think what a hamstring stretch would
Just
be.
if you just put your hand on your butt and you slide your hand down deeper, that's your hamstring.
Right. But I'm trying to think if there's a common stretch that people do for their hamstrings.
Oh, a common one would be if somebody, and I'm not advising it, but I'm saying putting your foot up onto a couch and then leaning forward and stretching. So you have your one leg on the couch. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I'm just saying it depends on how you do it, because there's a right way and a wrong way. You really have to talk to a sports medicine physician because you want to make sure there's no issues with your pelvis. You don't have any misalignments or anything.
You probably know I have a torn rotator cuff, and physical therapy has been a lifesaver.
It's amazing how smart those people can be with anatomy.
I mean, the stretches they give you, it's like, who thought of using a pillowcase? Who thought of using a dog leash? It's incredible. And just the decrease in pain and increase in mobility has been amazing. You know what my favorite stretch is, though? It's like when you go on a curb, it's a calf stretch and you put your heel down.
Oh, sure.
That is the best feeling stretch in the whole world.
Well, and that's a good point, AJ. That's another thing. I mean, we're chronically tight in hamstrings, but our calf muscles and that Achilles tendon always get issues with people because they call it kind of the weekend warrior syndrome. You haven't done anything for all summer, all winter, and then all of a sudden it gets warm out and you go and you try to play tennis, and then you pull a calf muscle, hurt your Achilles tendon. So that's another good point. Calf muscle is another one to stretch. I mean, that's why yoga is so important in different types of flexibility exercises and rolling. I think foam rolling is really important, but always ask your physician first.
Yep. So speaking of yoga, there is a question. How often do you do yoga? Do you make up your own flow or take classes? Do you have any favorite online classes? So I do yoga every day, but I don't always call it yoga in terms of like that it's always meditative or with music, because I just think of yoga as stretching. And so I make sure a minimum of 20 minutes a day. It's so it's a non-negotiable to you have to stretch, in my opinion. Are you there?
Yeah, and you're extremely flexible now and used to be. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Sorry. No, I thought you froze for a second.
I didn't used to be inflexible, but now you're flexible.
Right. And thanks to yoga. So I think everyone should do something every day.
So yoga, you should be doing, have a yoga practice where you do 10 to 20 minutes a couple times a week at the minimal, and then try to stretches in throughout the day.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's great. And do I have any favorite online classes? I featured several yoga classes on my YouTube channel. So those are some that I really like. There's at least 3 there right now, completely free. And my favorite type of yoga is yin and restorative. So usually I just Google that, and you can find lots of free videos online. So, Lauren says first time here. Welcome, Lauren. And so a lot of people are asking for stretches, but you really can't show them, at least not today with the way you're set up.
No,
correct?
I mean, and really honestly, before you engage in something like that, you need to have somebody kind of evaluate you and where you're at. Some stretches that you watch on TV or YouTube may not be appropriate for certain back or joint conditions or anything. So it helps if you go to a qualified yoga class where the instructor's trained and kind of takes a look at you, just looks at your form and things. My biggest criticism of yoga has always been, and I started studying yoga over 30 years ago, is not as much with the instructor. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes with the students trying to emulate the yoga instructor. Many yoga instructors will not stretch their students. They walk around and they help correct them because they don't want to be put in this position where everyone's going to try to put their forehead to the knee when has nothing to do with yoga, zero. And the other thing I have an issue with yoga, which isn't against yoga, it's just the way it's taught, is it's not just stretching. I mean, it's a whole philosophy and a way of living. And the different tenets of yoga, like the 8 limbs of yoga, like the first one, maybe most important, is the ahimsa, compassion and reverence for all beings, being kind and being loving. So, yoga is way more than just stretching. So in America, we stretch, but when you study, I've taught in India, yoga is a way of life. It's not, you just don't go there in your spandex and start stretching. That's just not yoga.
Right. It was supposed to be to prepare for meditation, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's great to do that to keep your circulation and keep limber and things like that. But we've turned it, like we do in America with everything, we've turned it almost into a sport and a competition where we can sell all sorts of equipment and outfits and all sorts of things. When you leave the mat, the yoga, the studio, you're supposed to take that love and that reverence with you that you had on the mat into the real world. So you're not cutting somebody off when you're driving. You're not honking your horn abusively to people, and you're being a loving and kind person. I mean, that's one of the first tenets, is that love and compassion. So just stretching doesn't mean you're practicing yoga. It's great that you're doing it, but we have a tendency to think that that's yoga. It isn't.
Correct. And the question is, do you make up my own flow or take classes? A little bit of both. But, at the Zoom classes that they're having now, JP, the teacher can still see you, even though it's not in person.
Right. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really good.
Yeah. Susan, who's watching live, says, I went to a physical trainer and she told me to eat meat. I would say find another one then.
People can only teach what they know. And, being a physical trainer, just like a physical therapist or a doctor or a psychologist, you have a certain amount of training, and that training is limited. It's like when everyone goes to a doctor and asks them about diet, why would he or she know anything about diet? They're not trained in diet. So a physical trainer is generally educated by companies that are selling supplements and protein powders and things like that. They're not trained in nutrition. So, I mean, it doesn't mean they don't know anatomy and they don't know what they're doing in the fitness world, but from a dietary standpoint, to say to eat meat is ludicrous.
Thank you. I love fresh hot roasted sweet potatoes or kabocha squash, but I don't have time to cook them every night when I want them hot. Have you ever pre-baked them and heated them up when ready to eat them? If so, is the consistency still good? Do you recommend reheating in the oven or microwave? Absolutely. I don't cook every day. I batch cook. And so I cook probably, I don't know, 6 to 9 pounds of sweet potatoes every time I cook, and I cool them, I put them in the refrigerator, and then I either eat them cold or, I'm not afraid to use a microwave. With kabocha squash, same thing, cook it in the pressure cooker, cool it in refrigerator. I think the consistency is perfect. Do you batch cook, JP?
Yes, but I think one of the biggest mistakes people make with potatoes or squash is they always eat them warm, and eating them cold is wonderful too. So there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, if you take a potato and you cook it in your refrigerator, you can create a little bit more resistant starch. So that's fine to reheat them, of course, but there's nothing wrong with eating them cold. I think most people haven't had it cold. It's kind of like oatmeal. Everyone eats it hot, but a lot of people have never made it, put it in the refrigerator, and the next day ate it cold. It has a whole different flavor and kind of texture to it.
Yep, I had mine cold today with salad. I like them cold or hot. And speaking of hot or cold, what are your go-to meals or foods lately as the weather gets cooler? Well, I live somewhere where the weather doesn't get cooler. So I'm in the desert. So it's the same for me. Also, I don't really think of foods as seasonal other than the fact that, I can't get cherries right now, but I eat what I eat all year round. I don't think of it like, well, it's hot, so I can't eat soup. I don't think that way. So I don't really have anything special for the holidays other than, or the season, other than, for example, soon cranberries will be available. So I'll be using those, but I don't really change my food according to the season. I know that there's, I think, is it macrobiotic or other people say you should only eat in season, but I just eat what I like when it's available.
Yeah, and also if you live in a cold climate and you still want to indulge in salads, which I definitely recommend, there's nothing wrong with taking steamed vegetables and putting them in your salad and creating a little warmth in that salad. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can also put hot beans or a grain like hot rice on that salad, which will kind of warm it up. Some people, we live where we have heat, obviously, but if you try to be environmentally friendly and keep your heat down low and put a sweater on, obviously you still may be a little cold. So in winter, I always encourage people to add hot foods to their salads. I think it's a great thing to do. I've always done that.
I love hot rice in a cold salad. Had that for dinner last night. One of my favorites. Thanks. I don't know if you can answer this one, JP, because I don't think you do recipes on YouTube, but it says, when making your recipes on YouTube, mainly the sweet ones, do you try them yourself or just give them to others and listen for their feedback? Well, since the pandemic, it's been about 9 months. There's nobody to try them except for Charles. So I think a little bit of both. Yes, I do. I'm probably not going to do a recipe that I haven't tried, because then I wouldn't know if it's good or not. But when we're not, physical distancing, social distancing, then definitely get other people's opinions. And I love the opinion of the people on YouTube that make the recipes and tell me whether they like them or not. You're not really much into making recipes, are you?
No, I'm not.
Nothing wrong with that. I think some of the best recipes are no recipes, like just eating food, for example, sweet potatoes and broccoli, my favorite. Congratulations on the new book. I'm excited to buy it before October 15th for the freebies. What was the most enjoyable part of writing your book? What was the most challenging part? And you can answer that too, JP, on your books. What was enjoyable for you and what was challenging?
Well, yeah, the most enjoyable thing to me is when you're writing it, putting it together, thinking, oh, you're all excited writing a certain paragraph, and I really hope that somebody gets this and sees this. I kind of for me, it was just hoping that somebody was going to get something out of it. And when I wrote something that I thought was really interesting, I just was just kind of, in a sense, praying or sending out a positive energy that this will help change somebody's life. I'd say the most challenging part, for sure, is when you write it, you're always thinking, especially if you come from a scientific background, this information may be changing in the next 6 months or next year. So that was kind of the challenging thing, because I knew there's always new studies and new science coming out, that when you write a book that has some science, you're always trying to provide the most accurate information that you can at the time of that writing. That was kind of the hard part.
Okay. So for me, the most enjoyable part is when you push the button that says print, we do print on demand. So that's always fun. That means it's done. I think the challenging part for me is the editing. Even though you use editors, you almost always miss something. And then especially with the recipes, it's like you just miss things. Even with many, many sets of talented eyes, it just seems to happen that way. And it can be frustrating, because once the book's printed, you don't want to have to take it down to fix those tiny little errors, but they're a little bit annoying. And I think the other challenging part is that, because not everybody knows who I am or how I eat or how I recommend to eat in accordance with the principles of calorie density, I don't do weighing and measuring of food, which means I don't know how many people my recipes serve, because I don't know how hungry you are when you're eating it. And so that's always been kind of challenging, because when I leave it out, I get criticized. But how can I put that in when it's antithetical to everything I teach and believe? So that's challenging. And always, creating new recipes can be challenging, because, you just don't know if people are going to like them. And I just don't like being a recovering food addict. I don't like having to just be in the kitchen and keep creating, because really my message is just eat food, eat very simply, but people want recipes. So I guess that would be the challenging part. Have you ever met anyone who is sensitive to vinegars? I have an autoimmune disease and sometimes get nervous about introducing new things. I break out in a rash from nutritional yeast.
Well, you do have to be careful with sulfites, for sure, that can be in vinegars, just like wines. People have terrible allergic reactions to those, but you can have an allergic reaction to anything. What people don't realize about many vinegars is, AJ, where do a lot of vinegars come from?
You mean like location wise, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, what's the substance? They can be derived from, say, grapes.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like a balsamic vinegar, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if that grape is grown with a lot of pesticides, then maybe you're having an allergic reaction to the pesticide. Not necessarily, it's not, if you had an organic one, maybe you wouldn't have that, because a lot of people have had allergic reactions to vinegars, but it was really the pesticides that was used. Same thing when they eat strawberries. They say, I'm allergic to strawberries. And I say, have you ever eaten a organic one? They said, no. They go try an organic one. They don't have a reaction. So it was the pesticide. So yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah. So I think it's possible for anybody to be sensitive to anything. I mean, I was born allergic to aspirin, and most people can take an aspirin, so you never know. And I stopped, I don't know about you, JP, I stopped eating nutritional yeast, I think at the beginning of this year, because I always felt unwell. Even if a recipe had 4 tablespoons in it, I just feel, it just didn't agree with me in my stomach. I just, that's probably why Dr. Goldhammer is not a big fan of it. It seems like a lot of people are sensitive to it.
Yeah, and I think what you and I have tried to teach in Ultimate Weight Loss forever is, though we recommend recipes and we encourage them, especially when people are new, as people get into the program years and years, and they ask us all the time, what do we eat? And then they see we're just eating basic foods without recipes. That's just simple eating is not only more efficient, but many times it's better for your palate because it's less tempting than when you're creating all these recipes with all these different types of sauces and flavor enhancers. It just makes you even more hungry and want to continue eating. So I have no problem with recipes at first, but I think it's nice to kind of slow down recipes and eat just simple whole food.
Amen. Stephanie, who's watching live, says, speaking of nutritional yeast, why do so many in the plant-based community feel the need to include it in their diet? I don't know. It's a highly processed food. It's not, nutritional yeast isn't found in nature, right, JP?
Yeah, and it also can be a brain toxin in large amounts. So it's not something that I know you and I have ever really been so gung-ho about. And to be honest with you, I think, it's in a sense, it's just another thing that hits one of your pleasure centers and gives you a high, and people enjoy the taste of it. So I'm not opposed to it if it's going to help you eat more vegetables and stuff. But I think it's one of these things that I've seen a lot of people use like a quarter of a cup on everything, on their whole entire meal. They're putting it everywhere. And I think then you can run into some problems.
Yeah, I see people in some recipes. Yeah, I agree. So when in doubt, leave it out. But I know that Dr. Goldhammer is not a fan at all. My feeling for a lot of things, if you can't make it in your own kitchen, maybe not eating it, I don't know anybody that can make nutritional yeast because it's grown on blackstrap molasses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So Susan's saying, is the yeast extract in Benson's table tasty unhealthy? Again, I would say the poison is in the dose. And when I'm using Benson's, I'm using like 1 tablespoon for like a soup that makes 16 cups, but it may be unhealthy for some people, which is why I also use a lot of spices from local spicery because they don't use any of the nutritional yeast. Jay says, can I eat banana and ice cream unlimited? I don't know. Can you? What would you say?
That's a whole nother issue I get with people all the time. It's like the muffins, all the vegan, healthy muffins, even though SOS free. I think it's the same thing with the vegan ice creams or the banana ice cream. It starts displacing then other foods, especially green leafies and vegetables. And I think you have to be careful with that because then all of a sudden you're basically eating 30 bananas a day, and you're not eating broccoli and cabbage and everything else. So I think you just have to be cautious with it.
And I think people misunderstood some of the premises in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, eating to the left of the red line. It wasn't that we were telling you it was all you could eat. It was all you could eat until satisfied, until comfortably full. And there's a big difference. It wasn't that you're trying to eat as much food as you can all the time. It's eating enough food to be comfortable and to be satisfied. And so that's where this concept of all you can eat, I think, got distorted,
Well, and also for me, when I'm working with clients, sure, at first eat, what you want, but eventually when they're with me long enough, I actually want them to eat a little less when they leave the table. I want them to still feel like, yeah, I could still eat more. So that whole concept of that Hari Hachi Bu from Okinawa, eat till, 80% full, that's something I've encouraged forever. Yeah, I think it's just healthier for your system not to just eat till it hurts. I don't think that's good.
I agree. How many hours before lying down for bed do you like to finish your last meal by? So I like 5, but the minimum I'll take is 3.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to do even 2 nowadays because people are always medicating. So they're always eating snacks and ice creams and vegan ice creams and all that right before they go to bed. So I would say the minimal would be 2 for sure. But ideally, if you can get in that 3 and 4, 5 range, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. So
I've talked about intermittent fasting before it was popular years and years and years ago. And, I think it's very important to finish eating early. And I don't want to give you a time limit, but let's say you finished at 6 o'clock and then you went to bed at 10, it sure feels a lot better and is a lot better for your system to have that 4 or maybe 5 hours of time, so you don't go to bed just totally, bloated.
I think this is especially important with people with GI problems, and the GI Health Summit will come out November 15th, and all the GI doctors say like 3 is the minimum. It's not the preferred, it's the minimum. So, okay. Do you snack during the day? If so, what are your go-to snacks at the moment? I've never been a snacker, even when I was obese. I'm a meal girl. I feel like, if you're hungry, you should eat, but I think there's too much. If you have to have something that's a snack, then you probably didn't eat enough at your meal, or you're looking for food for, like JP says, either entertainment or to change your state. I know that Dr. Furman isn't a fan of snacking. He talks about how we want to live most of our life in he always says the catabolic or anabolic phase, not eating. And again, what I've learned from the GI doctors is this thing called the migrating motor complex, these cleaning waves in your abdomen. If you're always putting food in, they never get a chance to work. So I think people should eat 2 meals a day or 3. I don't think people should eat 1 meal a day. I know that's being very popularized now, even by people that are, have credentials in plant-based. Many are saying, oh, I only eat 1 meal a day. Well, I know Dr. Goldhammer doesn't think that's a good idea. So if I did snack, which I don't, it would probably be vegetables, because my motto is, if you're not hungry enough to eat vegetables, you're probably not hungry. How do you feel about snacking, JP?
Well, a lot has to do with somebody's intestinal system and the integrity of their digestive tract. Because if you eat a large meal, that takes a lot of energy and a lot of work. Whereas if you eat a little bit, a small meal, and then you have a snack or 2, it's easier on your digestion. And also depends what you eat. But it also depends on what you do. If you're an athlete, and you're working out a couple times a day, you often can't eat just 1 or 2, 3 meals, because it's just not enough. You can't get enough in. I think it all depends. And like you said, it's hard to go wrong with eating vegetables as a snack. I mean, vegetables for me as a snack, or fruits are pretty ideal, but sometimes I'll have some nuts or seeds as a snack. It really depends what I'm doing. But I do think that you're correct with this, that people eat 1 meal a day. Boy, that's a lot of food to be putting in your stomach and your intestinal system. And if you don't have good digestion, boy, you're not going to really absorb a lot of nutrients out of there. It's very taxing energetically too, because there's not many things that take more energy from your system than the act of digestion.
Yeah. So my husband loves taking the Beet Boost powder JP recommends. Do you have any recipes for them, like date sweetened beet brownies, or anything I can make for him to make it more palatable? So I have a recipe in the Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss called Beetsicles, which can also be made into an ice cream, which is a beet and cherry ice cream. And Stephanie's watching live saying, can you talk about the benefits of Beet Boost? Can you remind us of who would benefit from using it?
Yeah, well, Beet Boost is probably one of the most popular products that I've recommended forever. And their site is beetboost.com. And if you use code JP16, you'll get a discount and then free shipping. And what's nice about it is a tablespoon of that is like 4 beets and 40 tart cherries. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I can just go buy beet powder cheaper than Beet Boost. But you're getting the tart cherries, and the tart cherries are critical, because those are the anti-inflammatory components in there. So when I work with people that have a lot of inflammation or athletes, that's what helps put out that fire, that inflammation, those tart cherries. And then the beets that they have, this isn't just directly beet powder. I mean, there's a way that they're formulating it. So the anthocyanins, like in the tart cherries and everything, are higher, and they take out the oxalic acid, which if you just buy beet powder, you can have tons of oxalic acid. So the Beet Boost doesn't have the oxalic acid, that's been removed. And the beets are generally mainly because it helps create nitric oxide in the body, which then create arteries. It helps the arteries open up to relax, dilate, which allows more blood to flow and increases circulation. I can't tell you the benefits that clients have just texted me and called me and constantly say how much benefit they're getting from the Beet Boost. So it's a product that I recommend all the time. I generally recommend it just in your juice or your water or in a smoothie, but AJ has made the sorbet out of it, which seems that people enjoyed that, or the popsicles too.
Yeah, and you could probably put it in hummus too. Why not, right? A beet hummus. What time do you guys go to bed at night and wake up in the morning? Do you use an alarm clock? I'm thinking about getting a sunshine alarm clock since my husband's alarm clock just makes me wake up stressed from the alarming noise. I go to bed by 10 every night. I don't always fall asleep exactly at 10. And I do set my phone to a really nice song that beeps at 6, but I'm almost always up between 4:30 and 5.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to me, except when I'm traveling. I think AJ and I usually right now would be traveling, of course, all over the place. And that's a challenge because some of these events end late and then there's book signings and kind of little get togethers. And on the road, sometimes I know we can get to bed at 11 or 12. And then you got, at least for me, if I'm teaching a boot camp, I've got to be up at 5, setting up and all that. So it depends. But normally, I think pretty similar to AJ, try to go to bed by 10 and get up somewhere between 5 and 6.
Yep. Good. So Karen says, I do most of my workout prior to work in the morning, treadmill and free weights. I always intend to do yoga and meditation in the afternoon, but somehow cannot get around to doing it. What's a great trick to motivate me to get some yoga in? I just can't fit it all in before work. So this is about how to manage one's time. What do you think?
Well, one of the things you can do is depending on what warm-up you're using for your weight training, you can do sun salutation or a modified version of that. You can also, in between sets, if you just pretend you're bench pressing or doing chin-ups or curls or whatever you're doing, you can do a warrior pose. You can sneak in a yoga stretch in between sets, which is perfectly fine because by the time you're done with a 20 or 30-minute strength training, you've snuck in quite a few yoga poses or stretches. And then you can also stretch throughout the day. And as I've said, the biggest thing is we wouldn't need to stretch as much if we didn't sit as much. If you had a standing desk or if you moved around throughout the day, if I'm on the phone or doing a phone consult, I can be walking and stretching, moving. You don't always have to sit. It's that sitting throughout the day that's going to be a problem for you.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I would just say that for me, if I don't do something first, it doesn't get done.
I agree.
Whatever it is, I can't, if I put something off, it doesn't happen. So, maybe either get up earlier, cut the other parts of the workout shorter. I don't know. But we've mentioned stretching, yoga, really important. So also the other thing I would say is maybe you could sneak it in at work because I don't know what your job is or what your break situation is, but a lot of the yoga stretches I do can be done in a very small space. So, if you have a lounge or, like I said, I don't know where you work, but maybe you can get some of those in during the day. Like you talk about sneaking in movement, but I think a person could ostensibly sneak in yoga.
Oh yeah. Well, that's movement. Sure. I mean, and on my exercise videos, there's 3 of them that I have. One is on the cut jump rope, so everyone can do it. There's one on exercise bands. And then the one, particularly what you're talking about, there's one on, it's really coordination and skill and balance. Those are things to sneak in throughout the day. Those are very beneficial because they only take seconds, literally, to sneak those little things in throughout the day. And that's one of the biggest things that we lose as we get older is coordination and balance. So you can check those videos out. They're at healthyhumanrevolution.com. I think if Teresa's watching, maybe she'll post some of the links to my sites because my other site is livingwithharmony.org. And then we're on Instagram too, Living with Harmony. So we have a lot of information there for free.
Great. And we can also put this in the show notes. You know what I was thinking, because some of the people are still saying, can you show stretches or how do you stretch something if you can't do it this way or this way? A lot, water is a great way because stretches that some people can't do on land, they can do on the water.
I think if people would just, when I work with clients, the one thing that I almost not really insist, but highly encourage is to live an active lifestyle. Don't use your car if you don't have to. Try to walk as much as possible and look at your home environment. I used to work with ergonomic companies where you're trying to create a desk where everything's within your reach. That's not what you want. You want to make things that are complicated for you. You want your pencil sharpener, if you had one, to be high and your file cabinets to be low. You want to be bending and squatting and turning and pushing and pulling throughout the day. Then we don't need as much flexibility training if we live more of an active lifestyle. So even though the remedy may be stretching or rolling, before that, it would be live more of an active lifestyle. So we don't need to do those things as much.
Great. What exercise or technique do you feel is most effective for toning arms and thighs?
Well, it depends what you're saying your arms are. I mean, I'm assuming your biceps, triceps, shoulders, and things like that. I think just push-ups off a counter are pretty productive because you're working your triceps and you're working your chest and you're working your deltoid, you're working your core. You might not be working your biceps as much, but I think push-ups off a counter are pretty effective. And I think simple squats in and out of a chair. Now, if you want to then take it to 2 exercises, I'd say push-ups off a counter, then take a set of hand weights or 2 cans of beans, sit in a chair and press up, sit in a chair and press up. If you could only pick one, that would probably be it, because that's getting your lower body and then it's getting your upper body to a certain extent. So there's no one size fits all, but that's pretty effective. I think the other thing is we hear a lot of questions about spot reducing. I get that question all the time, that somebody wants to lose, body fat on their waist or on their arms and things like that. There is no exercise really that we can do that spot reduces, especially if you have, if you've lost a lot of weight and you have maybe what they have like sagging skin on your tricep area. Unless you're really young, that skin doesn't generally just snap back. But what you can do is at least tone the triceps a little bit more so it's a little bit firmer, but there still can be skin that kind of hangs. There's not much you can do about that, without really surgery.
Right. Let's see. Does intermittent fasting make a big difference? I think it depends who you talk to, and it depends what your goals are. What do you think?
Well, I've been recommending intermittent fasting before there was intermittent fasting, the term, and I think it makes a huge difference. But in particular, I think makes a huge difference in someone's mentality, because they're not constantly controlled by food, is what I've been stressing to clients all the time. It makes you more resilient and a little bit stronger emotionally, that you don't need to be eating as soon as you wake up in the morning like a zombie, go getting a bowl of cereal or what people eat, like whatever stuff they're eating. It's like, yeah, you got to be a little bit more in tune to yourself, and your body doesn't necessarily need to be having things so regimented. It's good for your body to have some exposure to cold and to heat. It's good to have food sometimes, and sometimes you don't get food. I mean, that's how nature works. Animals don't eat 3 meals. I've been a big proponent of it from day one. The problem is too many people are promoting it for weight loss. I've never encouraged it for weight loss. It was for other reasons.
Yeah. I think, again, if you have GI issues, intermittent fasting is terrific. And if you have food addiction issues, because then you're not just putting food in your mouth all day.
Mm-hmm.
So Vicky watching live says, what do you recommend to strengthen knees that hurt when climbing stairs? I say bicycle, baby, or water exercise.
Well, again, it depends on what you're defining your knee as, because everyone calls their knee something different in that area. Are you dealing with something, that needs medical attention? In other words, you always need to make sure you talk to an orthopedic person or somebody who's trained so they know. But generally, when you strengthen the muscles that surround the knee, particularly the quadricep, the front, where you put your hand right on your thighs, you strengthen that with squats or leg extensions, if thinks that's okay. And then, of course, your calf muscles too, but maybe doing toe raises and things. But you really have to have it looked at and decide, what is it? Is it your patella tendon, what you may be calling your knee? So it's a tendon issue. Is it something else? I mean, it's hard to say. Is it a cruciate issue? We don't know if it's a ligament or a muscle or what, but generally most physicians within reason are going to have you either do leg extensions or squats. Depends on the physician or what. I personally, of course, I don't know your condition, but you are going to be squatting for the rest of your life, in and out of a toilet, in and out of a chair, in and out of a car. So if you're able to practice getting in and out of a chair, I think that's one of the healthiest things that we can do, is get in and out of a chair frequently.
Yep. Great. Where'd this go? Any tips for post-menopausal women for reducing the belly area? If I don't know, I mean, if somebody I'm assuming they mean either belly fat or skin around the belly. Skin doesn't go away. Fat goes away when you lose weight, right?
Well, yeah, but that's the question again that I was alluding to earlier, spot reducing. You can't just, it'd be like if somebody chewed all day long and they should have a thin face. You can't just spot reduce. Your body just genetically decides kind of what's going to take. It's like when people lose weight, why do some people, my clients, say they've lost it in their face all the time, and other people say I lose it in my chest all the time, or other people say I lose my butt all the time? It's just nobody really knows. It's kind of like a genetic thing. But weight loss, or more specific, fat loss, isn't really from your exercise regimen. It's from your diet. The only time it really comes from exercise is when it's kind of chronic, when you're running marathons and ultra marathons and things like that. Other than that, a simple workout regimen, you'd be lucky to burn 200 calories or so. And that might not necessarily be fat. That might be muscle glycogen or that's stored in the liver or the muscle tissue. So it's all in your diet. You know, that little bit of extra tablespoon of olive oil and the so-called magical oils that people are putting on their food, that's contributing quite a bit to weight gain.
Yep, absolutely. What is the best exercise to tighten bat wings? We always called those Hadassah arms because, you know, you'd wave and they'd keep waving.
Again, that's that you can strengthen those triceps with push-ups off the counter a little bit. Tricep press downs with an exercise band, or tricep kickbacks with an exercise band. Those help. I cover most of those in my exercise band video. I show you those in there. Tricep dips on a chair. Those help. Yeah, those would be helping. I know it sounds funny, but literally just if you went up to a wall, put your hands in close like this and kind of pushed yourself away, that helps work your tricep because you're using your body weight as resistance. So it's very similar to a tricep press down if you don't have bands or cables.
You know, I know you are a big fan of bands, and I never really bought in until I tore my rotator cuff, and I'm using every color in every way now. I mean, they're a lifesaver.
Yeah, the thing is that people don't realize that when you understand anatomy and physiology, you're understanding directions, you know, and it's like your body doesn't care if you're lifting 5 pounds of beans or 5 pounds of water or 5 pounds of metal or the resistance from an exercise band. All your body knows is it's feeling resistance. The nice thing about a band is it allows us to be very creative with the angles and where we can place the band. So they're probably one of my favorite tools to use is exercise bands. I pretty much use them with 100% of my clients. And when I get a client that laughs, all I do is get a thicker band and suddenly they're not laughing anymore because I can make the exercise as difficult as I need to.
Blue's the toughest, right?
Well, no, each company makes a different color scheme. So it's hard to say.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the one I have, blue's the hardest. So I would have thought red would have been. Shauna says, any thoughts on wild yam progesterone cream for perimenopausal symptoms? I know nothing about this, but there are some doctors that can help you with this. So, for example, Chilla Varesh, who does consults at the True North Medical Center, less than $100. I know she knows a lot about this. This is not my area of expertise.
Yeah, and also on Dr. Lori Marbus, who had me do all the exercise videos, you know, Healthy Human Revolution, where you find my stuff, my exercise stuff, is her site too. So you can contact her because she does sessions with you on the phone or telemedicine.
Yep. Yeah, she's great. I had her on the show yesterday. She talked all about her practice. And the question, have you used Your World? Yeah. The second time I had her, she's great. Have you used Your World salad dressings? I haven't. I even have a couple of YouTube videos where I do like not a blind taste test, but I taste them. And I have a code where you can get a month free of Dylan's show. They're excellent. And so are the ones from Forks Over Knives that are SOS free. And so are all the California balsamic vinegars that are SOS free. But I got to tell you, I make my own dressings. I like my own food. It's very easy to make dressings. My new book has lots of dressings. My favorite in this book is probably the lemon poppy seed. It's like 4 ingredients that you pretty much already have at your house. So I really encourage people to make their own dressings because it's cheaper. There's less packaging. Well, actually, there's probably no packaging. And I think they're even more delicious.
Yeah, I use actually my most popular salad dressing would be just hummus that I make. Again, I don't buy plastic, things like that in plastic. So I just make my own and just put it in glass containers in the fridge. And if you want to change the seasoning, like the California balsamic vinegar, that adds a nice little flavor too. And they have so many different flavors that, it's amazing what you can do with that. So I use that probably as my most common one I use. And sometimes I use some, I use sometimes like beans in there, like a mashed, almost like a refried bean, just kind of mashed beans in there too. But mainly I'd say hummus is my main salad dressing.
Let's see. A TS says, is there a big difference between the flat, wide, stretchy bands and the kind that are more like stretchy tubes? And does JP have a recommendation for a brand? Is this something you sell on your website?
I don't sell them, but I like the TheraBand. They're really good. They make the tubes, and then they make one called the CLX, and that's the flat band, but hidden inside, you open it up and it has handles in there, so you can put your hand in there to grip. That's probably the most common band that I use. It's an excellent quality band, and they have latex-free ones too. But remember, it doesn't. There's really no difference between if it's circular or flat per se. It's still resistance. It's just on the application. With the flat ones, they fit a little bit better on your ankles if you're doing side steps. And generally the tubes are a little bit thicker, so there's stronger resistance if you're doing a chest press or a lat pull down.
Mm. Violet says, can we mention some greens? Dr. Esselstyn has a little, like he does like almost like a little song, kale, spinach. I pulled it up on the internet. Kale, spinach, Swiss chard, arugula, beet greens, beets, bok choy, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, Napa cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cilantro, parsley, and asparagus, not experience. So that's that. So there is a question from Louise. I just saw it a second ago. Will you be having JP on our daily talk? Would be fun to have him talk about his life, his love, and compassion. JP, didn't I have you on the show at the beginning? I'm pretty sure I did.
What show?
You know, the daily show that I do.
Oh, I'm not sure. You do so many shows. I've been on a few different things.
Okay, I will check that while you can talk a little bit about your life, love, and compassion, because I'm pretty sure I've already had you on. But go ahead.
Yeah, so basically Living with Harmony is our organization. We're trying to open up an animal sanctuary and retreat center. And so it's just livingwithharmony.org. And for sure, follow us on Instagram or Facebook, just Living with Harmony. We're in Boulder, Colorado. And so basically what we do is, we're just out there giving information to people about planet-based living. So it's not plant-based, it's planet-based, which deals with love and compassion, and especially a lot of discussions about the environment. I mean, why do we not use plastic containers? Why do we make our own things? Why are we big into even avoiding recycling? People say, well, you don't promote recycling a lot. Absolutely. We'd rather have you recycle, but it doesn't often get recycled. So we'd rather go to a thrift store, and buy pants and clothes there, or when our pants tear, sew them up ourselves. In other words, we live in a kind of a wasteful society. So our organization is constantly trying to educate people about that. And basically that's what I do most all the time. Every lecture I do is about love and compassion in the environment. So that's what our organization is. So you can follow us there, and we have some nice videos put up there and nice little quizzes that you can take about the environment, and lots of different articles and things that I've written and other people have written. So thank you for that question though, Louise.
Susan says, will the sanctuary be in Boulder? She lives in Thornton.
Oh, well, excellent. You should connect with us. Probably not Boulder because we can't afford Boulder, but somewhere in the vicinity. We're still looking for property. We're hoping somebody could just donate a property to us, and then we could take it over. And we already have rescued 20 animals that we have right now rescued, and they're all hard to place animals that are missing a wing, or they're missing their beaks, or they're paralyzed. So we don't just take the easy ones; we take the hard ones. So definitely be in contact with me because we can connect out in Boulder.
Great. Let's see. Dina says, I started using weighted vests for my daily hike. What are your thoughts on weighted vests and any suggestions on what weight to start with? I am starting with 12 pounds.
Well, I would say weighted vests definitely have their benefits. You do have to be careful where you place the weights. If you place them all in the front and you have a weak, erector spinae or certain back muscles, you'll be forward flexing and can hurt yourself. So you want to kind of put some in the front and the back, and 12 would be, in my opinion, too much to add at first unless you're very fit. I think it's better just to add a pound or two and then move up slowly with them. But they're very good. You do have to just be careful, with them, because it is a lot of compression on your spine. So when you're done using a weighted vest for long periods of time, if you have the ability to hang from a bar and decompress your spine, that would be a good idea too. But they are a nice way to build bone density. The biggest challenge I have with people who walk and run is that your body adapts. And so the bones and the muscle adapt to that stress, the 12-minute walking every day for a mile or whatever it is. And then after a while, there's still not that same bone stimulation. So you either have to add more weight, or you have to go faster, or you have to go longer. So you need to kind of know what you're doing a little bit, because it's easy to get hurt not only with a weight vest, but just any exercise. You want to increase incrementally, very slow. Almost you don't even notice it. But in general, weight vests are good. They're definitely good.
Diane says, have you visited the Lion Sanctuary in Denver?
Yes, the Wildlife Animal Sanctuary, which is wonderful. Matter of fact, we're members there because they are doing an amazing job. As a matter of fact, they just rescued a bunch of the lions from, I think there was a movie, some lion or tiger king or tiger something. They just rescued a good majority of those animals. And yes, I go there quite a few times in the year because we have a membership there.
Nice. Marilyn says, it's hard to find the bands for a gal like me who's over 300 pounds, the ones for the thighs. Where can I get some? I want to work on my thigh area.
Oh, okay. Well, you might not need bands just yet, but because there's lots of other exercises you can do, but the TheraBand makes a roll of them. So you can actually buy a roll and then you can cut them to whatever length you want. The CLX ones are pretty long though, that they sell. So you can just, maybe Teresa will put my contact information there and then you can contact me via email. But for right now, just so you have my email, it's foods, FOODS, for FOR, life, LIFEJP @yahoo.com. And I could try to help guide you a little bit with that. But just getting in and out of your chair and just extending your legs back and forth for right now, those are great exercises, simple ones. Using exercise bands are okay, but right now just start with the basics, just more walking, more squatting, more just leg extensions to get circulation and flexibility going. That's a good question.
Nice. Darla says, are you and JP in business together still? Well, as a matter of fact, we have a new program coming out, a 30-day program. It's going to be like Ultimate Weight Loss 2.0, and we did it with Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer. So make sure that you're on my mailing list so that when we have it, it's almost ready to launch. We're just doing some beta testing. Check it out. It's really good because every day it's like a bite-sized nugget of something that's going to help propel you towards your best self.
Well, and it is funny, AJ, because when we do lectures together, when we did UWL, you need to tell everybody, you would tell me before I go on stage to make fun of you, right? And people, so I would make these jokes about you and people thought we'd be literally fighting.
Oh yeah, I know, like that's so funny.
People would write me or say to me, how come you're so mean to AJ?
Isn't that funny?
And I'd be like, AJ's demanding it that before I go on stage, I tell jokes about her.
No, it was. I think the people that knew us knew it. I think that's a lot of fun.
Some did, but some didn't realize we just joke with each other.
Of course, like brother and sister. Those are all the written submitted questions that we can hang out for just a minute or two more. If anybody watching live has any more questions, let's see if I can't see anything here just yet.
I want to mention too that I do have my Zoom series out too. Hopefully Teresa, if she's watching, will post it. I think it's johnpierrewellness.com, but I did 5 of them during the pandemic. And then I did, I think 7 of them right after. So people can still sign up for those. They're in the cloud, so you can watch them anytime.
Yeah. Well, we never actually separated you guys. Janice is saying it's just the only change was, and people don't realize this, we still sell the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. The change was it's on September 30th of last year, we just stopped participating in Facebook. And that's because we don't do it personally or professionally in any way. I mean, yes, I do broadcasts on Facebook, but we don't do it. And if you watch the wonderful Netflix documentary, Social Dilemma, you'll probably understand why. JP, I know you don't watch a lot of things, but I really would love for you to watch that and get your opinion because things that are very important to you, like teenage suicide. You did see it. It's a must see, right, JP?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I saw it because it's what I've been teaching. I've been teaching people that for years, and finally somebody documented it all. And I was like, it was beautiful. It was perfectly done. And it wasn't so much even the conspiracy stuff behind it. I believe in a lot of stuff they said, but it was just the way that it just gets your brain, away from your life. And it just, you go into this different portal. And I see it with all my clients, especially the young kids that have attention deficit and hyperactivity, their inability to focus. It's very scary, very scary.
Yeah. And that thing about the teenage suicide rate, especially with girls, if they don't get enough likes on Instagram. So JP and I didn't stop working together. We just stopped participating in this madness known as Facebook. So we still participate in other ways. And that's why we've decided to go forward creating programs that is not required for you guys to be on social media. If you like it, that's great. But, I don't care for it. Never did. So Stephanie says, do you think there's a difference between walking outdoors or indoors, perhaps inside of a shopping mall, if the weather is bad outside, or would you just say bundle up and go for it outside?
Well, there's a huge difference, gigantic difference, and something that I've been talking about for over 25 years. Recently, I think it was Dr. Greger that came out talking about how beneficial it is to be outside in nature. And the studies that I read over 25 years ago confirmed that. And they've been confirming it ever since, that just exposure to seeing green or pleasant, sceneries, breathing fresh air, and getting sun on your skin is very important. But also when you're on like a treadmill, nothing wrong with it, but it never changes. It's always the same. So neurologically, your brain doesn't have to really keep as alert. You can kind of be robotic. But when you're outside, you have to move for people. There's cracks in the way. There's some garbage or something. There's something. So you always have to be moving. So in general, here's the key thing. If it's safe for you to be outside, in other words, you're not going to slip on ice. There's no threats to you outside where it's going to be dangerous or it's dark or a bad neighborhood, then I would encourage it if you're going to be safe, if you could be outside. But if not, mall walking is way better than doing nothing. You're still building bone, and you're still building strength, and you're still building your heart rate up. So yeah, it's completely fine. Even if you can't walk inside, you can walk around your house. If you can't go out for some reason to a mall or outside, walk inside. And what I do with clients is I have an exercise band that I hook around their waist, and I hold them, and I actually have them walk down their hallway, and then we turn around, they walk again, and we just do that for a while, and they're having resistance because I'm pulling them back with the band. So yeah, that's a good question. But you don't need to buy expensive gadgets and gizmos and trails and steppers and things like that. We can just go outside if it's safe, and it's a healthy, safe thing for you to do. I encourage it.
Nice. Cheryl says, do I need to change my calories or nutrition on days I do long runs, 10 to 12 mile run days?
Well, that depends on your goals. If your goal is to lose weight and all of a sudden you're in a calorie deficit, that means your body's going to be pulling fat from you. So it really depends. If you're already a thin person and at the weight you're happy with, when you're done exercising, it is important to fuel up, because you're trying to fuel up those muscles in your liver with sugar, which is stored as glycogen, carbohydrate. So you'd have a better run or a better workout tomorrow. So it all depends. And you also want to make sure you're getting those fruits and vegetables to get those minerals in, the potassium and magnesium, sodium, because those are important electrolytes. So if you're losing sweat, you need to replenish those things for sure.
She says she's at goal weight.
She's at goal weight. Well, then, yeah, you should be eating right away for sure.
Yeah.
See, people just need to realize your body fat. Just think of it this way. Yes, it's an endocrine gland and it has functions in the body. But for this discussion, it's just a form of stored energy. That's all. So we should have a few pounds on our body, which we do. It's in our butt, and it's on us, natural fat. Women, it's in their breast tissue. Most people have enough fat on their body for emergencies. But we don't need to have 10, 15, 20 pounds on your body for emergencies, because you're inside your body if you believe in evolution, or however you want to say it, evolutionary, your body doesn't know that you have a refrigerator with food. It doesn't know there's a food store every block that you drive. So it's telling you constantly to eat, because it doesn't want you to starve. It doesn't know that we have enough body fat on us. We're not going to starve. But the point is, yes, if you're at goal weight, keep eating. Replenish your fuel. Right.
Dina says, I think walking inside is better than not walking at all. If walking in the middle of winter in Canada. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people don't like to walk in the snow. Christina says, if you're going to walk, what?
If it's safe, it's very healthy walking in snow. If it's safe, like walking through a park where there's a half a foot of snow, it's very challenging for your legs, and it forces you to lift your leg up and then plant. And so it's healthy for you if you're in a safe environment to do that type of stuff. It's good for your system if you're physically healthy and able. If you remember one of the Rocky movies, Rocky trained like that through snow, where he was running through, I don't remember if it was a couple feet of snow. So if you can't do anything, go inside. But if you're able to get outside and it's safe, do it.
Right. There was a question that the chat moved too quickly, but it was about what you think is the most important component to a vision board.
Oh, well, the most important component to a vision board is whatever it is your goal is. So for many people that I work with in this world today, I mean, I work with a lot of people that are under chaos and stress, and it's bad times for them. So being centered and composed and calm is important. So I often have that word or that image on the center of their vision board, and then on the peripheral will be other words or images that support that. So the most important thing on your vision board is what your ultimate one goal is, not 5 goals, but what is your one goal. So when I work with people that want more strength for preventing osteoporosis, it's that one image in the beginning, the center, that represents strength to them. And then everything on the peripheral that would build bone. So kale, nuts and seeds, right? Seaweed. So things that would be high in minerals, sunshine for vitamin D, and then bone building exercise like walking, jumping rope, things like that. And then some strength training. So the board is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be something that motivates you and inspires you. And the biggest mistake people make with vision boards is they think that once they make one, it's done. No, the vision board can constantly change. It's like the water in the ocean. It's always changing and moving and adapting. So you can change your vision board and add new photos and new words anytime.
Yep, and that's fun. Some people even do the magnetic ones, makes it real easy. So Sherry says, are 3-day veggie juice cleanses safe to do? Does this help kickstart weight loss? I mean, I think
it depends. When you say safe, if you have an eating disorder, things like that may not be safe, and it depends on your health conditions. And I don't recommend any of those things for weight loss. I've never recommended people work on weight loss. I have my clients work on getting healthier, and one of the byproducts of health, one of them, of the many, is weight loss. But so is lowering your blood pressure and opening up your arteries, improving your self-esteem, and getting more muscular, endurance and strength. I think I run into an issue with too many people. They want to go to the fasting clinics to lose weight. The problem is now let's pretend we vacuumed the weight off you. We took off 20 pounds with a vacuum. What your person who did that didn't do, they didn't change what was in between your ears. So now you're still going to medicate with processed foods when you have problems. Why would you not? Nothing changed. We just magically took the fat away. So I'm not big into focusing on weight loss at all, zero. But fruit and vegetable days, I encourage people to do. Juice days under the care of a physician if they're healthy and fit. I mean, normally those are healthy, but not for weight loss. I don't recommend it. I do it as more of a way to interrupt a pattern. If they went to a party or they drank alcohol, they ate cake and candy, and they are upset they did it, then I have them do a fruit and vegetable day or a juice fast day to interrupt that pattern so their brain doesn't keep thinking about those foods. Now they got something else to think about.
Yeah, I think you can do a juice fast safely at home, and you can also do it under medical supervision. And if you're doing it to recover from an autoimmune disease or maybe even reset your palate, it might be a good thing. But to me, to kickstart weight loss is a big red flag. And those of you that are in the Feel Fabulous group, Dr. Lyle talked about this at length Wednesday when he gave one of, I think, his best talk ever on weight loss. A phenomenal one. And the thing is why would you want to start weight loss? If you do that, then you're going to be very disappointed when you eat and you realize weight loss is a very slow process to the tune of maybe 2 ounces of fat a day. So I think that it might be a good thing, but not for a good reason. Because then it's, again, like you say, it's like fasting, deprivation. You can only lose weight in a manner, if you want to keep it off, the things you're going to be willing to do forever. So if you're willing to keep doing 3-day juice cleanses for the rest of your life, that may be a good strategy. But that's where we see the biggest problem is that people come to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program or any program, a weighing and measuring program, they do it to facilitate weight loss, and then they go back to their wine and their all the other things. So I don't recommend anything to kickstart weight loss. I recommend you eat healthfully and do the lifestyle that you're willing to do the rest of your life. That's what I say. Yeah, so I think that's it. Well, it's good to see you again, JP, and Teresa, if you're still watching. If you just send me an email with all the links you want me to put in all in a row for JP, I'm happy to place that in the show notes.
Yes, thanks for having me again, AJ. Good to see you. And thank you, AJ, for all the good work you're doing every day, making all these great interviews and everything, keeping people inspired. So
Oh,
thank
you're
you.
so welcome. And you've sent me some names, and they're already booked. I could have sworn I had you on the Daily Show. I'm going to check, but now that I've done over 250, it's hard to know sometimes. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Take care. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time when I have a chef all the way from Belize named Chef India Allen. All right. You take care, JP. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye everyone.